Hey everyone, here is our first full recording, which is one that is going to be a little prettier and a little smoother than our introductory one, namely because I just had to work with what I had. But this is what is environmental justice? What exactly is this stuff that we are talking about? And in the very beginning of that, we're going to talk about our assumptions of the course. Because in our next little lecture, we're going to talk about what is the subject itself. But in this lecture, we're going to talk about, well, what are our collective understandings? What do I need you to know? I don't necessarily need you to know these things before this very minute we're sitting here right now, but I need you to be willing to work with these propositions that I'm laying out in this lecture if we're gonna go from here, right? What exactly does that mean? So, for example, a course on African American literature at Ohio State would assume that we can agree that black people have been historically systematically oppressed in the United States. That's part one. That one racial group is not superior to other racial groups, so you're not racist by the very most basic definition. Yeah, we need that for you to be in the class. And that goes without like implicit bias conversations. That's a different thing. You need to at least be willing to not be racist. And then we need to also make the assumption that if you're taking the course, you are fluent in English, right? You can have conversations with us, and maybe if your English is even a little spotty in the spoken word, you need to be able to read the stuff, right? Those are the assumptions of an African American literature course. Our assumptions for this course is that climate change is happening, that an apocalypse is a social construct. What the heck does that mean? I'll talk about in a second. And that we humans are very good problem solvers. Put that in different words, we humans are actually pretty good at DIY, at doing things ourselves. So that first assumption, climate change is happening. The temperature of the Earth is increasing. This is undeniable. This is absolute truth. It is true. There's no arguing it. Humanity is the cause of that damage as well. Scientifically, we are as certain of that as we are that gravity works, right? That's how certain we are. And we're not going to really debate that during this course or having prolonged discussions in that regard, namely because we need to go from here, right? Part of that kind of misconceptions that we're having. This is a misconception that kind of continues actually. Every time we have a cold winter, somebody who doesn't know what they're talking about says, well, you see, so much for global warming. Well, my dear, the reality of the matter is that very, very cold weather in the winter is also part of climate change. And in the Midwest, the polar vortices we've been having every single winter for about the last 10 years now, those bitterly cold Januaries that we didn't used to have, at least not the way we have them, that is also climate change stuff. That is also that. That is the reality of it. And that is also because of global warming, or this thing we once called global warming. My second idea is that an apocalypse is a social construct. What does that mean? A social construct, if you've taken any kind of sociology courses before, this is an idea that has been accepted by society. So it is intangible, but it is to a certain extent an idea, but it's an idea that many people, most people, or at least a lot of people have. So things like family. What does a family look like? What does your family look like? How does a family operate? That is a matter of social constructs. Different people have different types of families, and the way they have their families are determined to at least a certain extent by society. Government. Government is also a social construct. Government doesn't exist if people don't let it exist, which Feels like a statement that could probably get me put on a list, but I guarantee I'm already probably on several lists, so it doesn't matter. And then money is also a social construct. The reason why we have to pay for watermelon in dollars, or have to pay our student loans, or have to pay our rent, is because society agrees that money is a good way to exchange things. That doesn't have to be. That is not a force of nature. That is just a force of how people agree it to be. Now, with all of those said, though, just because they are social constructs doesn't mean that your mom won't get upset with you if you explain to her that the reason you love her is only because society has taught her to love you. Don't tell that to your mom. She doesn't need that, even though it's true. Also, another example, just go and try to go tell the registrar that you don't need to pay your tuition because, well, money's just a social construct, right? These are ideas, these are collective ideas, but they have entirely real social ramifications. And the idea then that is very present in our world today, that it's all ending, that is also a social construct. And the reality of the matter is things are not ending, things are changing. That change might be very unpleasant. That change, there are people that are going to die because of it, but the way we perceive it is due to our collective ideas. So here's an example, and this is an absolute truth. Almost nothing could end life on Earth, at least in terms of the way we think of it, right? Sure, if there were some kind of galactic supernova type event where, like, our sun collides with another sun, or our sun goes supernova, or whatever. Yeah, sure, that would end life on Earth, but that's not what people usually are talking about when they're talking about an apocalypse. We're more likely to talk about something like thermonuclear war, right? So a nuclear war. Well, that would kill a lot of us. That is less likely now than it was during the height of the Cold War, unfortunately, because of the aggression of Russia in this year 2024. It's closer than we want it to be right now, but even if there were a full-scale nuclear war, actually, there are spots on the planet that would be okay. Australia and New Zealand are identified as places where the effects of a full-scale nuclear war that would kill most humans, those two places would actually continue, right? Those places would continue to be places where people could live. So yeah, probably everyone here listening to this would die, but my cousin that lives in New Zealand would still be there. It wouldn't be the end. It might be your end, but it wouldn't be the end. Another example, a more likely example, quite frankly, is well, it did happen. World War II happened. There were, that says 3. It should say there. I'm sorry about that. In the year 1920, which is, depending on how you calculate it, about 15 years before World War II started, there were 2 billion people on the planet, right? In the year 1920, 2 billion people. Well, over the course of World War II, which was the single deadliest event in human history, period, if you call that period of time of about 5 to 10 years, depending on what country you're talking about, 70 million people died in that war. That includes the people that died in the concentration camps. That includes the people who died in Hiroshima and Nagasaki due to the nuclear weapons. That includes both sides. 70 million people. That is a lot of people. That's a lot of people. I had relatives that died in World War II. I never met them because I was born in 1983. But it was the single deadliest event in human history. And that single deadliest event in human history, well, that killed 3.5% of the human population. And that's actually a small number. That's actually a small number in terms of the total number of human beings, right? At the top, we see a picture of the former city of Dresden that was in Germany, that was firebombed by the Allies. That city was absolutely destroyed. And then below we have a picture of Hiroshima that was also bombed by an atomic bomb. And that picture of downtown Hiroshima where the bomb dropped, and the bomb actually coincidentally dropped above this central one of the only buildings left. There's actually debate as to why that building's still there. Was it a matter of physics or whatever? It's not the point. The point is, what was there one moment was not there the next. And a lot of events like that, aside from nuclear weapons, happened in World War II. It was an absolutely terrible thing. There was untold human suffering. There were some of the worst, most cruel ways people ever died during that war. But you know what? You're listening to this right now on technology that didn't exist then, right? So terrible things are going to continue to happen in this world, and most of us are going to continue to survive. And if we believe that the world is ending, then our survival is going to become harder, right? That's really one of the major takeaways of this course. Let's play it a different way. Let's talk about COVID a little bit. All of us are survivors of COVID. This is the year 2024. The worst, well, again, I don't know when you're listening to this, maybe because I do tend to save these for a while. But our global population today, well, that's the global population before COVID, actually, just to keep the numbers clean. 7.8 billion people on this planet. And 7 million people died globally of COVID during like the height of it. That's 7 million people. And that, World War II, that was about, what was it? That was less than 5%, and this is less than 1%. And when I was a teenager, I was intensely afraid that a pandemic would happen, actually. And so, yeah, I had a couple panic attacks while COVID was actually happening because it was my worst fear, basically, come to life. Well, I'm still here. And you're all still here too. And the movie Outbreak that came out in the 1990s that supposedly was telling how we were all going to die of a virus spread that jumped from animals to humans, that killed a bunch of people, and was going to kill us all. It didn't happen that way. It happened in a different way. And we are still here, and we will continue. The point here is that any mass loss of life is a overwhelming catastrophe. If you have lost people, if you have loved ones who have died, you know that, right? You know how terrible it is on an individual level, but you also know that there are survivors. And the survivors need to move on and continue living if there's going to keep being society, right? This world is not going to end. It's going to change, though. Even this is not a religious course, but even in most of the religious texts of the world, those end of the world narratives are even more about change than they are things stopping. Which, again, this isn't a religion course, nor should it be ethically. Things are going to change. And most of us are going to survive, and we need to adapt to that change. I find this picture of 6 people who, as children, survived the atomic bombing of Hiroshima. I find that to be really inspiring, because they look just like normal old Japanese people, right? And they survived one of the very worst things in human history. However, I've already kind of said this. If we're going to adapt, we have to have hope. If we believe the world is ending, we are going to let our society fall even further into the garbage heap. We're going to give up. We're going to be mean to our neighbors. We're going to stop voting. We're going to give in to really the ugliest parts of human nature. And we're not going to hold bad people accountable. We're not going to hold people who say steal money from school districts or cause human misery. We're not going to hold them accountable if we think, well, the world's ending anyway, right? And however, on the other hand, if we believe the world is changing and we recognize the world is changing, we're going to act accordingly. We're going to plan for the future, right? We're going to put money away for retirement. If I believed the world was ending in the next 10 years, I wouldn't be saving so wildly for retirement the way I am, and now being in my early 40s. We're going to work with the stuff we have. We're going to fight injustice. We're going to call out those horrible politicians and the horrible corporate oligarchs where they are, right? We're going to keep doing this because we are the people who are here, and we want to make things better for our children. And if we decide not to have children, we want to make things better for people who come after us, because that's what's right. And then our last assumption, after the world isn't actually ending, but it's changing, is that we can do really cool things if we put our minds to it. And think about the fact that nearly all of your possessions have been made by people, right? These things we have, we just think that it comes out of some kind of, it comes from the store, right? People made that. Anything you're looking at, people made that. And if they didn't make it, they made the machine that makes that thing. And that's really amazing, right? Look at the walls around you. I'm presuming you're inside. But a person put those blocks and wood and everything else there. A person did that. That's huge. So that means you can do it too, probably. You could do a lot of things, probably, right? I'm really excited about what 3D printing technology has to do to us. Is most 3D printing done with non-renewable plastic right now? Yeah, it is. But the people who are making and working with that technology now are really interested in doing it in a more sustainable way. And that also holds promise, right? Just because a tech isn't sustainable right now doesn't mean we can't adapt it to be sustainable in a really good way. And then once we get that green 3D printer operating, we can just then use it to create like a part to our solar panels that maybe we can't get because of supply distribution issues, right? That's the kind of thing we're looking at, and that's the kind of ingenuity humanity has always had to get through hard things. And I just want to drive it home that you can make a lot more things than you think you can. You really, truly can. And one thing you have to get past, though, is that if you make something on your own, it probably won't look exactly like the thing that came out of like a factory or the workshop of an absolute expert. And that's okay too. I love, this isn't a hobby I do much anymore. I've moved on to other weirder hobbies, but I used to do a lot of patchwork in terms of like making things out of old jeans. And a patchwork bag is beautiful in terms of its simplicity and its reusability. You can take maybe 2 or 3 pairs of old jeans that you just can't wear anymore because they have holes places you don't want people seeing. If you patch it together, you can make a bag that can last like almost forever, especially if you're willing to like re-sew up a hole in it, right? Because a patchwork bag, if it gets a hole in it, you just sew it back up. Like, it is almost infinitely reusable in that way. And all kinds of patchwork is like, a lot of things are like that. We need to start thinking about our world in terms of what can I make so that this will last for me forever, and maybe if not forever, as long as I personally will need it. And then we can start thinking about, well, what are the dumb little things that I don't actually need, right? and then moving from there. But yeah, these are the assumptions of the course. We're going to be working with these ideas through our whole course, and I think these are really interesting ideas to talk about, and I hope you do too, and I hope you don't just drop the course now and follow the following lectures, but if you have to drop the course now, that's okay too. Doesn't hurt my feelings at all. I will see you later, and thanks a lot.